Hello, my name is Dan Wright. I'm a registered nurse and a musician from Ghana, living and working in the UK, specifically in Scotland. In this video, I'm going to help you change your perception about the English language evidence needed by the NMC as proof of your English language proficiency. If you clicked on this video, I hope your objective is to pass the IELTS or the OET in just one sitting. This video is going to tilt more towards the IELTS since that is the exam I sat to satisfy the requirements of the NMC that helped me to immigrate to the UK. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. I'm going to walk you through 7 tips that helped me pass my IELTS, and I hope that by the end of this video you find value in it. Tip number 7, mindset is everything. Are you part of the group of people who think that the IELTS is just a red tape instituted to fail you and prevent you from achieving your dreams and goals? If you have that kind of mindset, then I'm sorry, because although it might not be the only thing that prevents you from doing the necessary things that would help you to pass the exams, it's going to be a contributing factor to how you perceive the exams and eventually prevent you from getting the needed grades required by the NMC or whatever institution you are using it for. There are loads of research to show and prove that your mindset affects your productivity. And in this case, positive mindset will go a long way to affect your productivity. Instead of telling yourself that the English test is designed and orchestrated specifically to fail you, you can rather tell your brain that the IELTS is a test to prove to yourself and the system that you possess an international appeal and you can thrive irrespective of demography. So take this from me, mindset is everything, so have the right mindset. Tip number 6, are you or your friends telling you that IELTS is just an English exam and if you can speak English you can pass? Then sorry to burst your bubble, but that is also wrong. Therefore, to achieve the grades or the band score you need, you have to familiarize yourself with the sections and the structure of the test. And this takes me to point 5, that is linked to the point 6. I've come across a lot of people who say that I can pass the IELTS on my own through self-study. Can you? I don't necessarily have the numbers to back this up, but from my experience, the number of people I know who got help from accredited centers and achieved the required band score and grades far exceeds the number of people who self-studied for the exam. If I'm supposed to come out with a study to compare the number of people who get help, as in organized classes to study for the IELTS or the OET, compared to the number of people who self-study, I would consider the number of people who self-study and pass the test as outliers. The reason being that there are a few number of people who I know who self-studied and sat for the exam and actually passed. On the other hand, I know lots and lots of people who got help by joining an organized class over a period of time who passed the exams with flying colors. I am not saying that you cannot self-study and pass the exams, but why the stress? Because there are British Council accredited centers that will take you through the step-by-step process and let you understand what you need to know before you take the test. I'm going to leave a link in the description to some accredited centers by the British Council in Ghana, and hopefully if you follow the British Council in your home country, you can find some accredited centers where you can study, get the needed knowledge, get the practice you need and pass the exams, because the IELTS or the OET, above all other things, is not cheap. And also, while you study on your own, how do you improve on something you do not know that you don't know? Wrap your head around it. If I don't know that I am weak in writing and I don't know the steps to take to improve my writing, how do I then even improve the writing? And above all other things, how do you practice your speaking skills? Because I doubt that you can speak to yourself and make corrections out of it and see yourself grow and improve with everyday practice of the test. To sum up this point, do yourself a favor and contact a British Council accredited center and get help to study, sit for your IELTS, so that it is going to be stress-free for you and you can ultimately pass the exam with ease and achieve the needed band score. Point number 4, have adequate time to prepare. I would advise a minimum of 6 months of preparations before you sit for the test. Hear me out. On my first attempt of the IELTS exam, I had roughly had 70 hours of contact time learning the IELTS. I joined a class that was a group of people, about 8, whereby someone who had taken the test was teaching us the things we needed to know to sit the exam. That is not even all. Out of about 7 people who sat for the exams, only 2 had the required band score. Although some of my grades were way higher, especially in listening, which I had about 8.5, and other areas which I had about 7.5. I was deficient in reading. So looking back, what this tells me is that we were not prepared to take the exams. The interesting thing is that those who passed the exams got just the exact score needed by the NMC. 7 in listening, reading, and speaking, and 6.5 in writing. Of course, that was a triumph, but that goes on to show that either we rushed through the preparations to write the examinations, or we had not grasped the concepts needed to pass the exam. When I failed to achieve the needed band score for the reading, guess what I did? I registered for a resit of the whole exam within just 1 month. I never had any other preparations. I was just betting on the fact that if I had achieved these previous grades, all I needed was to just put in some effort and I could easily get a band 7 for the reading and combine my results. And that was the worst mistake I had ever done in my life. After I took the test in Accra, I came out of the test center and I nearly cried because I knew for a fact that I had failed the test and I had even performed more abysmally than my previous test. I didn't need the test results to come out to tell me that I was not going to meet the required band score. And lo and behold, when the results came in, it was exactly as I anticipated. That was in January 2021. It was a very challenging moment for me. I was nearly depressed by the development. So after going through my stages of grief from failing the IELTS the second time, I resolved that I was going to give myself enough time, study for the test, get help from an accredited center, and take the test for the third time. So from April 2021 to September, I got help from an accredited center and I sat for the exam. And although I didn't have a grasp of the writing as how I would have wished I did before taking the test, it was more than enough to get me the required band score to fulfill the NMC requirement for the English language evidence. So it might sound hard, but my advice to you is that don't believe in shabby preparations and put all your hopes on luck, but rather get help, and that would increase your chances of getting the needed band score for your English language evidence. Point number 3, be in the right environment. And this also ties up to point number 4. When I started to get organized help from a British Council accredited center, I met a friend who has right now become a lifelong friend, and she challenged me to go above and beyond to study for the exams. We had a WhatsApp group that we used to do extra work after our class, and that went a long way to contributing to developing our skills and passing the IELTS. My study colleague, who is known as Bridget, who I affectionately call Brigitte, is also in the UK and doing well for herself, and I attribute my success in the IELTS to her because she has a very bright mind and she challenged me to do more, practice more to achieve the required band score needed by the NMC. So yes, having the right people around you can also go a long way by affecting the time you dedicate to the exam to practice and ultimately achieving the required band score needed to work or study in the UK. Number 2, practice the strategies you have been taught or you have learned individually before mixing them all up in one practice. Let me explain what I mean. For example, let's say in listening, there are different sections in listening such as maps, conversations, or even a lecture. If you have practice questions, I would advise that you individually practice some of these sections and get familiar with them before you practice the test as a whole. Additionally, in reading, there are sections like true, false, not given, yes, no, not given, feelings, and the etc. Make sure that you understand what it means by yes, no, not given, or true, false, not given, and practice them individually before you practice the whole reading test at one sitting. If you have watched the video up to this point, I hope that you are getting some value out of it. And I would like you to take a moment to consider clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel. Now, tip number 1, apply spaced repetition and active recall. In a book titled Make It Stick by Rudiger, McDaniel, and Brown, the authors make a case that while rereading a passage is passive and little or no learning at all happens, that is the go-to method for a lot of students as a learning strategy. Based on the research they did, you are better off learning a material, giving yourself a break, and making the effort to recollect the information you learned on your own, but not going back to reread it. Because most of the time, rereading the information tricks your brain into mistaking familiarity for actual learning. You might be familiar with the information, but when you are put on the spot to be examined, that is where you find out that you just read the information, but learning did not take place. So in this case, active recall is making an effort to remember an information which you have learned before. In practice, what I will advise you do is that after you have learned a particular strategy, close your textbook, close your computer, and recall the information. Try and put it in practice, and by doing so, you are building a skill to identify that type of question when you see them in a particular section of the text, say reading or listening. If you have gotten this far in the video, I would like to give you a bonus by sharing a personal experience with you. The writing part of the IELTS was what I found very challenging, to the extent that after I practiced a writing section, I felt so drained that I literally had no energy to do the reading or the writing. And depending on what happens in every circumstance, you are not going to take the IELTS exam in, let's say, a particular order. Maybe in your practice, it could happen that you will take your listening, your reading, your writing, and maybe you're speaking on a different day. But I remember on my second attempt, there was a challenge that made us rather start the writing test before the other sections. I'm not saying that could be your case, but the point I'm trying to make here is that practice doing the listening, the reading, and the writing in one setting under exam conditions on your own. I would encourage you to do it as often as you can to build the strength, to build your muscles, to build that form of tenacity to help you stay prepared for the D-Day. Because I remember the day I took my final test on the third attempt, I came back from the test center to my hotel and I slept from the moment I got there till the next. I was so exhausted. In as much as I would have liked to tell you that the IELTS is an easy exam and you can just pass with little effort, that is not the reality on the ground. But with adequate preparations and the right information at hand, it can be an easy exam to pass. I hope you got value out of this video. I wish you all the best, and let me know what you think about the video. And if this video goes a long way to help you, I would appreciate it if you come back later to leave a comment to encourage others and share with your colleagues as well. Thank you, and see you in another video.